promise game. In the promise game, you pick a baby step that you're virtually sure you can do, and that whenever you need a little bit more, when you make an adjustment, you adjust it. And then you win and win and win and win with a series of baby steps, and you don't have the crash and burn that occurs when you don't fulfill something, when either yes or no, and there's no in between. The promise game gives you the option to renegotiate a promise, so you keep winning progressively and consistently with more baby steps that you know, so then you get on the confidence success spiral faster and more consistently, which is more wins, more self-trust, et cetera, et cetera. And we can contrast those two worlds. In fact, we can even do a video where we can have the conventional world and the promise game and compare them side by side to show how they're different. Let's say let's say we can modify it this way. So let's say you want to set a target, let's say the person calls it a target for a month from now, okay? But the tech on the site, the game app, does not allow a month, right? So all you do, it's really rather simple. At the end of the first 2 weeks, which is the end of the cycle, you simply enter a renegotiation of the promise, and you enter the same promise for 2 weeks more. You give yourself another 2 weeks. You see my point? And
Okay.
you can keep doing that as often as you want. So you could literally have one promise that doesn't change, that you renegotiate each for every 2 week cycle that pushes it forward another 2 weeks. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yes, because I thought that when we say renegotiate, is something like we don't complete the promise in just 2 weeks. So yeah.
Yeah, well, but see, the thing is, let me give you another scenario here to think about. When you play the promise game, you're working a lot with baby steps. And so, because baby steps
Right.
is something that builds confidence. Now, so let's say that you're working for 2 weeks on a promise, but you really want a longer time period, okay? You can renegotiate that promise and change the wording of it a little bit so that it either elevates you to a little bit more of a challenge, like you know what I mean? It increases the
Yeah.
challenge level, or it makes it easier because you found it difficult to get there in 2 weeks and you really need more space, more, you know what I mean? So you can scale it up or scale it down. There's no rule in the game that
Okay.
says you must keep the promise the way it is. See,
Oh,
that's the beauty in the game. Is it's a real to life example of real life. It's not an artificial box where you're locked into a box and you have no way out and you're
got
trapped.
it.
And then when
Uh,
you don't do it, you're kiss of death, and then you're just whatever, and then you're horrible for the rest of your life because you're in judgment for the rest of your life.
okay, got
That's
it.
the
Yeah.
innovation. This is one of many innovations in the game, that we treat people like human beings, but we still hold them to the goal, but we do it in a human way, in a compassionate way, in a sensitive way, in a flexible way, by keeping integrity. Your integrity is not dependent on always doing things one way and no other way. That's not integrity. That's rigidity, not integrity. Now,
Okay.
also a interpersonal emotional dynamic that I want to touch on here. I've been studying this for a long time. If I make a promise to you and I keep the promise, well, you feel good, I feel good, and we're done. Right? It's all fine and good, right?
Yeah.
It's just normal, it's average, it's typical, it's right, whatever. Okay. But if I make a promise to you and then 2 weeks later I say something like, you know, I I have done my best, but I need to modify the time, or I need more time. So are you okay renegotiating with me? So you say, okay, what's your proposal? Like, what's your renegotiated proposal? Right. And I give you that. And you say, okay, I'm willing to go along with that. Okay. Now, then we go on and we do 2 more weeks. It may only be like a slight little change in the promise, perhaps, right? but then we go 2 weeks and then I fulfill the promise in the second 2 week period, let's say, for example. Okay. So what is the net difference between, and look at this from an personal emotional vantage point. What's the difference between making the promise and just keeping it like people normally do, and making the promise, renegotiating it, and then fulfilling it? What's the difference? Night and day, complete night and day, completely different emotional experience for people. The second is a personal bonding, a personal trust and bonding experience, because the act of asking for renegotiating involves vulnerability. There's an element of vulnerability in that. And
Yes.
there's an element when you agree to the new terms of the new promise, there's a trust element just in agreeing to that. Okay. Then when it's fulfilled, it's like, wow, wow, we did this together and we got through it
Successful. Yeah.
together. You see what I mean? So when you
Yeah.
look at the long-term impact of relationship, the act of renegotiating is an extraordinary, powerful tool in building that trust. It's
Mm.
not just completing a promise like a machine that builds trust. That's a good thing to
Yeah.
keep promises. That's not what deeply, deeply bonds people together in trust. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I got
now
it.
you take the extreme case of the broken promise, right? So that's the ultimate
Brooke.
kiss of death is the broken promise, right? But we
Right.
set a different set of rules in the game than we do in real life. Okay. So we allow for the fact that sometimes the shit hits the fan and your life is chaotic and everything's falling to pieces and your 16-year-old is in the hospital with a broken arm and your wife is screaming and you have whatever, and you have no time to renegotiate a promise,
Yeah.
and whatever. So it's a horrible thing, and there's bad feelings, and there's a sense of betrayal, and there's all these horrible things, right? That's how people normally hold this. But then when you bring in love and compassion into the equation, and you bring in forgiveness, and you bring in the recognition of what conditions caused you to do this, or what limiting beliefs you might have that get in the way, and you clear all that out, and you then recommit to the promise, and you recommit to negotiating and communicating. Now you're on fire. You've healed something, you've transformed something inside of you, and you're on fire. And the person, if there is another person, they may have been a sense of betrayal, but they're willing to, you know, uh, allow it to be and bring compassion in and then start again. And then if you have a relationship where you build on that and build on that, the net result is extraordinary, right?
Yes.
Because of the learning experience that goes on. So that's the point of the promise game, to keep learning from
Mhm.
everything. Because 5 years from today, you won't care whether you completed a promise about widgets or some, mundane thing. What will matter 5 years from today is the trust and the bond and the synergy and the level of friendship that is built between human beings. That's what is the enduring factor.
Relationship.
You see, that's what is the enduring factor here.